Welcome in, Dween Nation. We are the Dween Sports Podcast, and we're just about to get started. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can continue to be your fantasy sports podcast. Thanks for being part of Dween Nation, and enjoy the show. Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and Week 3 is here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're here to help you with your starts and sits decisions, and we are obviously here with our quarterback starts of the week, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, our sits of the week, our kicker plays of the week. So all of it to really help you guys set up your lineups, win your matchups, en route to you winning your fantasy football championships, as well as make sure to look at the TikTok. We are flying right there. We're continuing to grow every day, posting multiple times every day. I know I have my rankings out there. You have a lot of your recaps from games, and we're just continuing to bounce off and grow, which we are just both super excited about. But this is starts and sits, and before we dive into each of our starts and sits, how are you doing, Genoa?
Yo, Dween Nation. Justin, I'm doing good. We are now, Justin, a part of the fastest growing sports podcast and all of TikTok right now, I believe. We're doing pretty good out there. So Dween Nation, continue to keep supporting us. But yeah, Justin, starts and sits. Week 3, Justin, I'm so excited. I mean, Justin, how fun has this NFL season been so far? I mean, yeah, there's been a couple injuries, but just, Justin, a lot of star play. Some of the draft that we thought was going to be into fantasy football. Okay, we were expecting these players, Jamar Chase, to bounce back and stuff like that. But there's some new players out there. There's some new starts and sits. There's some players that wowed us there, including a quarterback in Indianapolis. And I just feel like this season's been so fun. Unfortunately, yes, my Texans are 0-2. But, hey, we're going to be back. I believe in C.J. Stroud. It's just, hey, this season is shaping out, I hope all injuries aside, to be a great season. I'm so excited heading into Week 3.
And that's a tough thing. I mean, through 2 weeks, you're right. We've seen, like Daniel Jones, for example, have 2 great weeks. Is this legit? But then you have a team like the Jets where Week 1 was a awesome game. We thought, man, this offense might be legit. And then Week 2 happens, and it was the complete opposite. So we're seeing like complete opposite of things. Unfortunately, injuries crept into this week. Joe Burrow is now out for the year. Obviously, we had Kittle last week. Purdy didn't play last week. Aaron Jones gets injured for 4 weeks. So definitely some big changes, and that's why we're here to help you work through your decisions here. And we'll start out with the quarterback position, and I have Caleb Williams is my start of the week. They play the Dallas Cowboys at home. They are 0-2, and last week they got embarrassed. I know it was on the road, and the Lions are a good football team, but Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are going to need to continue to work things out and grow. And to be honest with you, the offense didn't look that horrendous. I think the Lions are still a pretty solid defense. We saw, obviously, Roma Dunze have a great game. Swift is still a consistent piece. We're currently, DJ Moore's kind of missing in action, even though he's on the field. But I just think this matchup where we saw Russell Wilson throw for 450 and 3 scores last week, I think that Chicago and Caleb Williams are in line to have a great day.
Justin, one of the things I loved about, a few things that I loved about the Bears lost in Detroit. What we saw at Roma Dunze, he had 2 receiving touchdowns. He looked good. I mean, he looks like the number 1 guy. I honestly haven't really heard much out of DJ Moore in these first 2 games of the season. So I'm starting to believe that Roma Dunze is the number 1 receiver for the Bears. And you know what, Justin, I love it. It literally helps Caleb Williams as a fantasy quarterback. You know what, Justin? His rushing ability is just as good. He had a rushing touchdown Week 1 against the Vikings, and he is becoming a solid quarterback play. And I think that Ben Johnson and this offense is embarrassed. This team is embarrassed by the last 2 weeks where they're defeating the Vikings on Monday Night Football, and all of a sudden JJ catches fire. And then this past week, it looks like the first quarter and a half of the game that they can go toe-to-toe with the Lions, and they just smoke them all the way, even past halftime. And I just feel like now Caleb Williams and this Ben Johnson's offense is now going to be able to figure some things out at home. You mentioned against the Cowboys. I love it. If the weather's nice there in Soldier Field, I like this to be a shootout.
Yeah, and I also think that there's a very high chance that cornerback Deron Bland is out for this week as well. He missed last game against the Giants, and if he were to miss, I think that helps, obviously, Caleb Williams in this offense. And then on the other side of things, the Bears starting cornerback and I believe another secondary piece are out as well for an extended period of time. So the Cowboys, are going to be scoring, and that's going to leave Caleb Williams in this offense with a need to throw the football. So I love Caleb Williams. Tell me about your start of the week, Drake May.
Justin, I love Drake May. He has a great matchup, but I'll get to that in a second. But I love what I saw last week in Miami. He played really good. And he showed that he can do. He had 230 passing yards. What was it? 2 passing touchdowns. I think this offense, week by week, under Mike Vrabel, you're going to see improvements. You're going to see flashes. You're going to see them getting other players involved. And how about this? Was it Keyshawn Butte? Yes, he only had one booty, or he had one catch only, but it was for a touchdown, 16 yards. But then you get Ramondre Stevenson involved in the receiving game. You get Austin Hooper. You got Hunter Henry. I'm starting to like this core. Diggs as well. Shout out, he's having a kid. He was third in receiving yards, and so maybe this offense, little week by week, is going to start to develop, and they're going to develop into more of a pass-heavy offense. Justin, obviously they have 2 running backs that are pretty good. They got Ramondre Stevenson, who he led the team in carries, and Henderson, who only had 3 carries. They're throwing in Gibson in there. So to me, I don't think they're going to be a rushing team. I know Vrabel had great rushing teams with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, but I feel like this offense now is going forward to becoming a pass-heavy offense. Drake May had 23 pass attempts and completed 19 of them, so that's really good, Justin. 2 touchdowns, 230 yards in Miami. Now he gets a matchup at home in Gillette against the Steelers, who, Justin, have been awful. They have been awful, Justin. The past 2 weeks, Justin, the Steelers have given up 30-plus points each, right? They gave up 31 to Seattle last week, and then 32 to the Jets. So, I mean, Justin, this is probably one of Tomlin's worst defenses we'll see. And on a Sunday afternoon where you have those random big-time games from a quarterback at home, I think this is going to be Drake May's game where he can hit over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns passing and maybe 1 rushing. So I like 4 total touchdowns after Mr. May. I know it's going to be a little difficult when you got TJ Watt after you, but I mean, Justin, like this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been just undisciplined. They don't seem like the normal selves. They don't get the correct pressure that I'm used to seeing out of a typical Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh D-line. And so I think that this offensive line with Campbell out of was it LSU that they drafted, I think he's going to be able to hold his ground, and if he's not covering TJ, if they move him around, I still like this Patriots offense to win the pass protection, and I feel like Drake May is going to be able to benefit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I'm just going to add a little bit to what you said, because I completely would have said the same thing. A lot of the things that Drake May has done this season has been super impressive. Trevion Henderson, I know people are scared with him, but he had, I believe, 3 holding penalties on offense, and that's why he was kind of removed from the game last week. But even, with his absence, Ramondre stepped up, and I think whether it's Ramondre in there or Trevion or both, he's still going to be great. And another good thing that I kind of mentioned with the Caleb Williams thing that helps is Christian Gonzalez, New England Patriots top cornerback, expected to miss, which means I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be able to move the football and get some points on the board. And that's going to allow Drake May to continue to flow in this offense. So I think it's a great play there for May. I'll drop one question for you, because there's a couple guys kind of going right around the Drake May range in the rankings this week. So do you start Drake May, or do you start Justin Herbert against Denver, or Bo Nix against the Chargers? What are you gauging there?
Well, I can't be. I'm actually starting Herbert in our main league against Denver, so I'm going to say Herbert. But they're all good matchups. I take Drake May over Bo Nix. As crazy as that sounds, I think the Chargers defense is shown to be solid there, Justin. And Bo Nix has been struggling just a little bit. I didn't like that week 1 matchup against the Titans. Last week in Indy, he looked okay, but still, I was like, it's not the Bo Nix that we kind of liked in rookie year Bo Nix. So I would take Drake May. Not only that, I think the matchup is better. Like, maybe Bo Nix has a better season, but I think Drake May at home against the Steelers is better than Bo Nix on the road.
Yeah, no, I think that's
good
super
defense.
valid there.
Yeah.
I think I would even go with no. You know what? I'll probably do the same lineup as you: Herbert, then May, then Bo Nix. We'll move to running back, where I got James Cook. And yes, I know he's a top guy already, but this guy plays the Miami Dolphins. You can't ask for much better matchup than that. And honestly, he's looked like he looked like himself from last year, but maybe even better. I mean, he had a phenomenal play against the Jets with that long 50-yard touchdown. It was just such a great play. And with the Bills, I think they're going to be in command of this football game. And when that happens for Buffalo, they just go to running the football with their top guy in James Cook. I remember last year, I think it was a Thursday night as well, the Bills played the Dolphins, and Cook went for over 102 scores, maybe even 3 scores. It was a big performance for James Cook last season. And I just think, you can't really – he's just so good. He catches the ball. Obviously, he can run the football. And in that offense, they're going to be on the field a bunch, scoring a lot of points, and I think he's going to have a great day.
Yeah, Justin. I mean, James Cook has got to be at least top 5 high scoring running backs within the first 2 weeks, right? I mean, he is phenomenal. I want to say he has a total of 4 touchdowns already. I could be wrong. But literally, I know he had 29 fantasy points, 27, something like that in one of my leagues. So I think James Cook is a great play against the Dolphins where, I'm not going to talk much about the Dolphins, but I feel like their defense is they can be carved by Josh Allen. And then he can, dump off some passes to James Cook. So I definitely love that. For me, Justin, man, did we know, Justin, that this was going to happen? My start of the week at running back. We knew this was going to happen. I mean, I got a lot of flashbacks this past week when I'm thinking about my start to the sits. Well, we did mock drafts there, Justin. We were like, your dad would always pick Jordan Mason in the 7th or 8th round. And we'd be like, damn, that is a good pick because, we know it. And here it is, Justin. Jordan Mason, he has looked good. And he has looked really good, Justin, in Minnesota's first 2 games. And you know what? It sucks that an Aaron Jones injury happened. We hope Aaron Jones gets healthy. We hope he gets back. But man, Justin, you don't understand now that this Vikings offense, unfortunately, it sucks that it's going to be Carson Wentz at quarterback, but maybe it could help things out. But I love Jordan Mason. I think that with Carson Wentz being there this week, I think they're going to probably hand it off a little bit more and open the play action just a little bit because Carson Wentz was pretty good. And, he had some great moments. Who can forget that, first, 8 to 10 games in 2017 where he could have won MVP. And I feel like he had some good running backs there with him. And I feel like Jordan Mason, he just looks so good. He's going to get a ton of carries, ton of touches. I don't think looking at this backfield, no one's really, I think Ty Chandler as well is hurt, Justin. So Aaron Jones, and it looks like Ty Chandler is also hurt. So Jordan Mason's the lead guy. I'm not worried about goal line carries, Justin. He's going to get the goal line touches as well. He's capable of 100 yards. He can get touchdowns. You saw what he did last year with the 49ers, with McCaffrey being hurt. I think this offense is a little bit more crafted better this year than the 49ers were last year. And I think Kevin O'Connell is going to have a great offensive day, I believe, from these Vikings on Sunday.
Yeah, man, this one is so painful because last week, as you know, in our big league, I made a trade where I had to deal away Jordan Mason. And honestly, I'm just so regretful right now. Obviously, it was before the Aaron Jones injury. But you're right. We talked about it all offseason that it kind of, unfortunately, Aaron Jones is known to be injured for a time or two, and it happens here in week 2. And now Mason's got the whole backfield against the Bengals, which is one of the worst defenses. Yeah. I literally think he's probably going to get over 20 carries, especially with JJ not there and it's backup Carson Wentz. And yeah, I think the backup might be Cam Akers. They just just brought him back for his 3rd time on the team. But yeah, no, you're so right. Jordan Mason's probably going to be a top 5 play at the end of the day for this week against the Bengals. So yeah, I think it's a great play there. And he's going to get a ton of volume, man. And it really just hurts that I just traded him away right before kind of the change happens. I wouldn't have done it if I knew that, but that's how football works. We'll move to wide receivers, where I got DK Metcalf, and it kind of relates to what we talked about a little bit earlier. I don't think Christian Gonzalez plays this week. And with that, DK Metcalf's going to feast on this Patriots secondary. Last week we saw Tyreek Hill find himself over 100 yards. The week before that, Jacoby Myers had 8 catches for 97 yards against the Patriots defense. Now you have DK Metcalf, who has been pretty good through his first 2 games with this team. I think that it's going to be a good performance for DK, and you should definitely have him in your lineups.
Yeah, Justin, I definitely like it. The matchup you mentioned, the Patriots cornerbacks, Christian Gonzalez is going to possibly miss. You mentioned, and I feel like this defense isn't fully developed just yet. And old man Rodgers, you just can't doubt him. Yes, he had a pretty rough game last week, but I think he bounces back. DK Metcalf, he had a good game last year in New England, just when he was a part of the Seattle Seahawks. I think he had over 100 yards. He also had a touchdown. So I think he's gonna be looking good for DK Metcalf there as he plays the Patriots. For me, Justin, I gotta go with Zay Flowers. Now it's between Zay Flowers and Ricky Pearsall. Those are 2, but I'm gonna go into Zay Flowers. I think he has a great matchup Monday Night Football, home against the Lions. I think that the Lions on the road are a little bit different team, offensively, defensively. Lamar Jackson and this team they're 1-1, and I feel like a win against the Browns last week doesn't really, I guess, satisfy their hunger as to be a top team in the AFC. But this week they put a little bit more gas on the pedal, and I think Lamar Jackson has another phenomenal game where he has 3 or 4 total touchdowns. And I think 2 of those are going to go to Mr. Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers to catch a bomb. I want to say 50-yard touchdown or just a 50-yard play, maybe a screen, and he just takes it to the end zone. He's looking really good this year. I think the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is there, and I feel like now this Ravens offense is kind of like Detroit there, Justin, where there's a ton of mouths to feed, but there's that one receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Zay Flowers, is still going to get those targets. And I like Zay Flowers at home. I feel like he's a really good receiver when they're home. And yeah, give me Zay Flowers this week as my starter.
No, I love Zay Flowers this week as well. He's been actually getting a lot of targets from Lamar Jackson, which has kind of been something he had missed in the past. He's also still not a big touchdown guy, but he's finally getting the targets here. 7 catches, each in the first 2 games. 20 targets. Week 1, he got over 100 yards and a score. Last week wasn't as pretty, but I just think that I love the volume he's receiving. And you're right, Monday night against a really good team in the Lions. This game is going to be competitive, and I think he's going to be the lead target getter for sure in this game. So I think that Zay Flowers is a great play and should be in your starting lineups. We'll move to tight end. I got Kyle Pitts, and yes, week 2 he kind of came back to earth after a really solid week 1 performance. But this game against the Carolina Panthers, you got to give me Kyle Pitts all day long. J.C. Horn is going to be shadowing Drake London most likely. And I'm not saying Drake London's not going to have a good game. I still think he's going to have a good game. But with that, their top corner kind of shadowing your top wide receiver, let's find the next best guy here. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be that guy. And he's going to find himself in the end zone this week.
Yeah, Justin, you know what? I kind of like Kyle Pitts. You got to think about it. He is the only guy. I mean, through 2 games, he does have 13 targets for 11 catches. Not bad for just 2 weeks of the season, 96 yards. So he's averaging 48 a game. I mean, it's not bad. But then again, looking at the Falcons receiving touchdowns, only one person has one, and that is Bijan Robinson. I want to say that came week 1 in their second drive against the Buccaneers. So, Michael Penix doesn't have a passing touchdown, so that I guess that's more on his fault than Kyle Pitts. So I like it. I think Kyle Pitts is, Justin, looking at the depth chart, I mean, he is the only, obviously we like to joke about Kyle Pitts, like the draft and stuff, and it's funny, but Kyle Pitts is actually the number 1 tight end in Atlanta. There's not a Jonnu Smith there, no more that's holding them back. Looking at their tight end, the tight end chart is Felipe Franks and Quentin Tarriano. So, yeah. I mean, there's not really tight ends. Charlie Warner, their backup, is questionable. So I feel like they're going to have to elevate some tight ends. So he's the only guy there, Justin, the only red zone guy. And if they're not running it with Algier and having Bijan's touchdown stole, I mean, Kyle Pitts is the next guy you go to. Drake London, I mean, he's playing hurt, but he is going to be able to play this week. But I like it. I like Kyle Pitts. For me, Justin, I'm going to go right into my tight end. I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson. Now, I know his season has not been pretty. I don't think he's hit 50 yards on the season so far. But I think that with the quarterback change, with Carson Wentz, I like what he was able to do with Zach Ertz and a couple other players before that. I think it was Britt Selleck or something like that. They had a couple other tight ends there in Philly. And I think Carson Wentz, with a good offensive system, like was once upon a time in Philadelphia, I think he can move the chains. And I think with this play action, pretty much I mentioned earlier with Jordan Mason, I think it's going to open up opportunities for TJ Hawkinson on the play action. There's going to be a lot of bootleg, I feel like, for this team. And, you can do this against the Cincinnati Bengals. You know what I mean, Justin? Like, you're not playing, even like the Falcons, right? The Falcons had a great defensive showdown in Minnesota last week. But I think Cincinnati Bengals is much weaker. I think that Jake Browning as quarterback it opens more opportunities to turn over the ball, I think, for the Cincinnati offense in Minnesota. But they're going to put Wentz in some good spots, and I think he's going to be able to take advantage. Obviously, you already have Jefferson there. But when you have a really good running back like Jordan Mason, you can move the ball with, it's going to open so many opportunities for TJ Hawkinson. I think he's going to be a really good catch and run kind of guy. When we're looking at Hawkinson's, game, and we're seeing, he has a lot of yak. Definitely like Hawkinson as my starting tight end.
Yeah, I think this week is the make it or break it week for me if I'm going to stay on board with Hawkinson, because he's such a talented guy. In the past, we've seen him be a top 5 fantasy tight end. But, this matchup is just too good. The Bengals are not a good defense against tight ends. And, yes, it is a new quarterback, but you're right. Carson Wentz is a solid veteran that's going to utilize his weapons well. And, JJ was still learning, and, the offense couldn't get going under him last week and most of the first week. But you're right. It has to happen this week for me. If Hawkinson goes out there and puts up another dud, I'm going to be panicked for his value rest of season. But I believe in him. I'm going to give him, the chance this week, and I do expect it to be good. But if it isn't, I think things
Yeah,
are going to have to change for your starting lineups if you're having to roll him out. But I think you're right. I really
fair
like him
enough.
this week to put up a good stat line. We'll move to our sits of the week, guys that you do not want to have in your lineups. And it hurts me to say it, but Josh Jacobs, I'm a little bit worried about in this game against the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, last week we saw Derrick Henry have a very poor output. What was he? 11 for 23 in that game against the Cleveland Browns. Yes, and they were also in command of that game in its entirety. So it really, the Browns' rushing defense is it's good, and I think that the Packers are still going to win. They're going to be able to do it with Jordan Love and maybe Tucker Kraft can get in the end zone. Maybe we can see something from Golden. And obviously, I can't tell you to just sit Josh Jacobs because he's probably your second round pick. But I just would temper expectations because it's a really tough matchup. What we've seen through 2 weeks. And even in week 1, we saw, Chase Brown go for 2 yards a carry against this defense. So 2 games in a row with 2 top, 20 backs, you could say. I know obviously Derrick Henry's probably top 5, but Chase Brown's still a pretty top end guy. And they both struggled mightily against this defense. I'm going to give the same to Josh Jacobs on the road here. So definitely temper expectations. If you have a big play like Javonte Williams, I would go and start him over that, or Alvin Kamara. Those are that kind of range. I think I would, Bucky Irving, of course. I'm trying to think of guys like I would still start Jacobs over ETN. So that kind of gives you the line of where you should be with Jacobs, but I don't love him this week.
Yeah, Justin. I mean, he's currently questionable right now. He missed practice today with an ankle injury. He was limited, or no, wasn't. Didn't really practice. I'm looking at here. And you know what? Against the Browns, I don't really like that matchup. I think Jordan Love has a good game, and I think the Browns or the Packers defense does the rest of the talking for this victory for the Packers. And yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, these are 2 players that I have in our main league. They're Jacobs, and now I'm going to talk about Marvin Harrison. You know what, Justin? I'm going to admit it. You were right. I know last year you were so down on Kyler when, we were excited about Kyler going into 2024. He let us down, and I think it's starting to happen again. I understand that the Cardinals are 2-0, but ladies and gentlemen, they've beaten the Saints and the Panthers. So, I mean, that's really it. I feel like they go to San Fran this week, and I feel like Kyler is not going to be a good quarterback, and it's going to play into effect in Marvin Harrison's targets. I mean, San Francisco with Robert Saleh back there as defensive coordinator, Justin, that's good enough for me to get a great defensive game out of those 49ers on Kyler Murray. I mean, Kyler Murray, I want to be a fan of his now, Justin, but like in 2 weeks, I just don't see it anymore, Justin. Like I used to think he was this fantastic quarterback out of Oklahoma, but like year by year, I'm just starting to question a little bit, like, is he the guy? And, I mean, he used to be a great rushing quarterback. He has a rushing touchdown, but I just don't feel like he can feed Marvin Harrison what we hope he can get. It kind of just reminds me of like Odell's first couple years. He was good in New York, but it's just like he ends up getting traded. So I don't know, man. I don't know if Marvin Harrison I don't know if it's too early to say, but he's the guy in Arizona. I don't know if Kyler's the guy. I'm a little worried, so that's why this week, obviously I'm going to have to start Marvin this week for me. But like in other leagues that I do have Marvin, I'm just like, I don't know if I can start him. I'm just a little concerned with Kyler Murray, Justin. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I think, and I'm also looking at Marvin. He's not completely innocent of blame. I actually think at the end of their careers, we might see that he's probably the 3rd best receiver in his class. I think Neighbors and Brian Thomas probably
Yeah.
in their career above him. But he is in a bad situation. Kyler Murray is not a really good quarterback, and this offense looks like they had the playbook from last year and went, oh, we're just going to use the same thing. Like nothing is different. There's no attempts to improve. I don't think Marvin's not getting, a lot of different routes compared to last season. It's just not impressive to me what the Cardinals are trying to put out there. And you're right. They haven't had the competition yet. And we'll see kind of how this offense works when they get tested against the Niners this weekend. But yeah, I'm definitely skeptical on Marvin Harrison. And I believe in the talent, though. I'm not saying, I know I said he probably will be 3rd in his class, but he's still a really good player. And I just think maybe Arizona at the end of the day, we'll find out, is not the right spot for him. Or maybe they move on from Kyler in the near future and we can kind of get hope there. But you're right. This week, I'm not a big fan. And I think he is worthy of a sit. If you have a guy like Roma Dunze, or if you have a guy like Luka, I would start him over Let me think of another guy here. Tedero McMillan, I would start him over Marvin Harrison. Goodness gracious, maybe definitely Sutton. So they're definitely
Pearsall?
yes, I would start Pearsall over Marvin
Okay.
Harrison, but that's kind of where the line is. I wouldn't go much lower than that. Like I would start Marvin Harrison over Jalen Waddle, who if he's questionable tomorrow, but over Jalen Waddle, over
Yeah.
Olave, Devonta Smith. So yeah, that's kind of where I have Marvin Harrison here. We'll move to kickers though, and I have Jason Myers. They play the Saints. They're going to be in scoring position an ample amount of time. And he's a pretty accurate kicker, so there's nothing more to that.
Yeah, Jason Myers has been awesome. I love the matchup this week. I'm going to go with Matt Prater. He's home, and I feel like he's going to kick a numerous amount of extra points as well as field goals. This is an easy matchup at home. Josh Allen's going to be able to move the football with ease past the 50-yard line tomorrow night. So I like Prater this week.
Yeah, man. I mean, Prater, obviously, he's had the history of being a really good kicker. He finds himself in Buffalo in the twilight of his career. It's a great offense to be a part of, and he's been a top 5 kicker thus far. So I think he's a really good play. But yeah, Dween Nation, those are our starts and sits of week 3 of the NFL season. Hopefully you can use this information, set up your lineups. But don't just look at this info and be like, okay, well, I can't get any more help from it. Drop your thoughts, questions, comments. We're here to help you guys set up your lineups. We've been doing that a lot on TikTok. We hope we can continue to grow it on YouTube as well. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Continue to stay tuned. We're going to have our rapid fire picks out soon as well. But yeah, you guys, rest easy and good luck in your weeks this week. And Genoa, send us out.
Yo, Dween Nation was our starts and sits of week 3. Can't believe it's week 3 already. We're so excited. Thank you guys for watching. We love you guys. And as always, peace.